It's
No,
been a
no,
long
no.
week.
It has been
But
such a long week. This is fun. I'm glad we're here hanging out on a Friday afternoon. It's a perfect way to end a very long, productive, but exhausting week.
it's so funny. We just dived straight into the conversation. We didn't even introduce ourselves. So I guess we should back it up a second here.
Let's back it up.
um, would you like to go first, Blake?
Sure. I'm Blake Robin. I make music as Luxury. I'm in my studio in Los Angeles. And you may know me from either Luxury, the band slash remixing project I have, or from TikTok and LinkedIn now, where I do a lot of videos about the creative process with music and specifically interpolation. That's my catchphrase. That's my making copies is whispering interpolation. How about you, Mike? Who are you?
Wow. Every time I get asked, I'm like, what am I going to say this time? Which hat am I going to talk about? I guess the short version is DJ, got into production, started collaborating with better producers, started to actually do really good things, went independent, wrote a book about it, and a whole bunch of other stuff along the way that I'm sure we'll get to at some point. And outside of that, I also work during the day with a company called Chartmetric, who provide data and analytics to the music industry. So I know that we had a prequel the other day where we not a prequel to this, but a pre-cool, I should say. And there was a lot of fun things that came up. So we just had to basically say, let's stop here and let's pick it up on the live. And here we are
Yeah,
today
exactly.
for the
Yeah.
second time, but for the first time live.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we should talk briefly about how, and there's probably a lot of our colleagues, our cohort here. We're part of this LinkedIn Creator Accelerator program, the first 100. They've given us lots of hashtags to use. Hashtag LinkedIn Creator Accelerator Program. Hashtag first 100. But what that means is that LinkedIn is very generously. They're trying to obviously boost the platform as being a creative analog, just like there's TikTok and Reels. There's another venue, specifically maybe one that's more geared towards I suppose business, but also artistic and productive. Not just teenagers dancing, in other words, or memes. And we're part of this. We were honored to be chosen. I know I was. I'm sure you were too. And we are now in the midst of at the end of week 4 of 10 weeks of. They've kind of given us free reign to just kind of make what we want to make, and kind of experiment. And so this is my first live. Mike's an old hat at doing these LinkedIn lives, but here we are. That's part of what brought us together, I should say.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny because I have come across your content on other platforms before, such as TikTok, and just your very short, extremely informative videos, whether it's about sampling or covers or maybe samples that weren't cleared, and a lot of fun things there. And so when we connected on LinkedIn, I was like, how have we not had this conversation already? How have we not known each other before this? And so not only are we here today on a Friday afternoon when the weekend is beginning for a lot of people, in other countries, they're probably halfway into the weekend, but you have a new release out today as well, and you're still here turning up for this.
I have not just one release, but 2 new releases. One of which is official and on Spotify, and one of which is a little bit less legal, which is a perfect maybe launch pad into discussion. But the official one, it's on Spotify, it's on everywhere, Beatport, TrackSource, and it's a collaboration I did with Tim from a band called Satin Jackets out of Germany, and Jill from a band called Scavenger Hunt, and the three of us did this track called "Just Like It Was Before," kind of a slower, melancholy disco track. And today it's out on Boogie Angst label, which is Crack and Smack's label. Crack and Smack are one of my favorite artists in sort of the new disco space, as is Satin Jackets and as is Scavenger Hunt. So it's kind of a super group effort. And today the Art of Tones remix came out. So normally that's enough. The day that your record comes out, it's just like there's been a push all week, and then there's assets, and then there's posting, and then there's responding to comments and whatever. Today, all of that is happening. But I also decided, because it's Bandcamp Friday, to throw up just for 24 hours. And this is just between us. So if you're listening to this, don't tell anybody. But I do this white label edit bootleg series of edits called the Luxury Edit series, and I just put 5 up today on my Bandcamp. And yeah, I'm going to take them down at midnight. So, but I was up till midnight last night finishing that up and finishing the 5 tracks and uploading that. So I've not slept very much this week, and I'm a little bit slap happy right now. So please type in the chat, Blake, shut the hell up if I'm going on too long, Mike. But that's my brain right now.
I love it. And honestly, it's funny, after hearing that, I still feel like you seem very chilled right now for someone who has not 1 release but 2 releases out. And it's funny how you mentioned the whole being up until midnight getting things ready for Bandcamp today in addition. And one thing that a lot of artists are starting to realize is that the majority of the work actually happens pre-release. Once the track is out, there's only so much you can do. And so people are starting to realize, okay, we need to plan ahead. We need to have lead time. We need to actually put things in motion before this track is out. Otherwise, we're going to be scrambling on that Friday or whichever day of the week we release, and we're going to be playing catch up. So yeah, you obviously seem like you've got it together with regards to that.
Well, yes and no, but that dovetails perfectly to obviously what you do. And between your book and your day job, as you put it, maybe you can provide me and the rest of us with some insight about what the teeing up of a smart release strategy might be, just in case I didn't do it this time. Luckily, I had a good partner in Boogie Angst. I think Vim over there, who's in Crack and Smack, and also they run the label. They've done a really great job. I've worked with them before. We did a single before a few years ago called Keep It Together. They got me some great syncs. But let's just say, as a hypothetical, I actually have a single coming out in I have another single after this. What should I be doing? What shouldn't I focus on? What should I focus on? What are the myths of Spotify playlisting? Give us the My Corner angle.
This is going to be an extended live stream. No, in all seriousness, the first thing I will say is, if you haven't already set a release date, give yourself as much time as you can. If ideally, I mean, the dream, this may not be something we can all do, but 10 weeks would be fantastic, because that gives you time to double, triple check the master, make sure the artwork is already in, get ready to upload it. And then you've got 10 weeks to actually start releasing teasers leading up to that, having conversations about it, telling people about it. And it's not just all of a sudden this surprise, a new track came out, I uploaded it yesterday, and now it's available on 2 DSPs and hopefully the rest by the end of the weekend. It's even if something appears like it happened overnight, if it's successful, the reality is that it wasn't actually uploaded the day before. It was uploaded 6 months before in some cases for major releases for major artists. So as far as once you've done that, then that gives you that 10 weeks to not be worried about finishing the final mix or anything like that. You can purely just focus on, okay, what work am I putting in around this release? Whether it's going on TikTok, posting short videos, giving people little updates each week as if you're still creating it, when in all reality it's done. Posting little teasers on social media, little tiny audio clips, maybe unveiling the artwork if it's original art as well. People love to see that. And then things like submitting for playlist opportunities as well. And the short version, number one, any service that has a form where you can submit for editorial playlists, that is the first place that you should be going and filling out those forms. And the reason why I wanted to say that is that it's not just about getting on a playlist. And I mean, yes, that would be fantastic. But with these forms, whether it's Spotify or Amazon or Deezer or any of the platforms that actually have their own hosted submission form for artists.
Right. Like Spotify for artists, something like that.
Exactly. And Amazon Music for artists and Deezer for creators, previously known as Deezer Backstage. These forms, yes, you are saying, here's my track, here's some information about it as far as the creation process, here's why you should consider it. But beyond that, you're actually adding all of this additional information that is getting attached to that track. You're tagging all the instruments that were used. You're tagging the city in which you recorded it. You're tagging the mood that it would fit within. You're tagging genres as well. And some of the really crazy loopy subgenres are now available as well. So you can get very specific with your music. It's no longer just dance, even if it's new disco. You can actually say new
Right.
disco. And not that new disco is a smaller genre by any means, but obviously just keeping it relevant. And with these forms, the other thing that can happen is, as I mentioned, all of this information is now attached to that song. It is traveling everywhere within these streaming platforms, not just being served on playlists to listeners, such as Discover Weekly on Spotify, but it can also find its way onto radio stations as well. And a lot of these platforms now, I'm finding that people are less and less actually going and seeking out a specific playlist, and more people are just actually using their voice and saying, play chill music or play new disco music or something like
Yeah.
that. And what's happening is they're actually just getting radio delivered from a lot of these platforms now. And your song could find its way into that. I mean, I won't say the artist because they're very humble and they wouldn't want me to name them. But there's an artist that I know that actually had over 4 million streams on Apple Music just on radio. So they didn't even get added to any editorial playlists. And there's another artist who's had tens of millions of plays on Pandora across their radio stations as well. So there's a lot of things beyond playlists that will also drive those numbers for an artist as well. And I know the artists are so playlist focused. It's the buzzword. It's been around a long time. But just look at these forms and
Right.
realize that it's more than just getting on a playlist. There's a lot of other
Is there
opportunities that can come from that.
I have so many like follow questions, but the first one, first of all, we have a question in the chat from Saskia. I hope I'm saying your name right. Saskia from MA International Music Marketing is asking, would you say 6 weeks ahead? Mike, you said 10 weeks, which kind of surprised me. Clearly, the longer the better.
Mm.
But 10 weeks is a long time. Do you think 6 weeks is enough, or does it have to be? Do you think it has to be the 10 weeks?
Look, I've seen people do it in 4. I've seen people do it in 2, but the reality is the more lead time you give, especially if you're not walking directly into one of these streaming platforms and dropping it directly in front of that person, you need to give it more time once you filled out these forms for it to actually make its way around. You know, I actually had the opportunity to go and tour one of these streaming platforms a few years ago, pre-pandemic, and I was blown away because everyone was in the one building, and as I walked past everyone's desks, they were all listening to music. And what was great was you would have different editors that would walk past and say, "What song is that? Oh, could you send that to me?" And they would actually listen and they would pass it around. And obviously, anyone that's filled out these submission forms is giving themselves a better opportunity for things like that to happen. And you need to give that lead time so that the song can be listened to by more ears and
Mm-hmm.
potentially get to the right person before the release. Because as we're going to keep saying today, majority of the work is happening pre-release.
I just want to add something to that, just in my experience as an artist, as Luxury with two X's, where I've got my Spotify profile has, I think I've got about 50 songs and 50 remixes. So there's a lot of content, and every song has a different story. And sometimes the story is successful, and sometimes it's less than successful. But sometimes it goes out and doesn't get added to anything. You know, you do everything you can to push it on every platform. You're tweeting about it. You're Facebook. You're doing TikTok. Whatever it is, you're filling in the Spotify for artists. You're doing everything right, so to speak, in terms of setting it up. But it seems to go out without that initial explosion that you were hoping for of streams. If you have Spotify for artists, if you are an artist or a label or a manager, you'll know that there's the app, and you can see in real time with your most recent release, you can see the number of plays like actually move. The needle is literally moving in real time. Sometimes you look at that and you're like, you know, I was hoping for a few more zeros. And sometimes what happens is a long time later, after the release, like 6 months, a year even, out of nowhere, I'll get an email that comes in saying you've been added to this official Spotify playlist. And in your mind, it's like, well, I've moved on. There's all these other singles, but the song is still in the ether. It's still in the ecosphere of playlist additions and subtractions, for that matter, and it can still pop unexpectedly much later. And sometimes that's because of maybe a real world event. If you get a sync, or if it's used in film or TV or something like that. Sometimes it's just the luck of the draw. Maybe what Mike just described, where somebody at the Spotify offices was listening and they were like, "Oh, I hadn't heard this before. I need this for this playlist that I curate." Or I have a few songs in some video games, some Xbox games. And once the new version of Forza 5 came out, some of my older tracks got added, from 3 years prior. So it's yes, there's this big setup, but it's not game over if on day one or week one it doesn't explode out the gate.
Yeah, and that's a really important point. Once it's out, if it doesn't immediately take off, it's not the end of the world. You definitely should not beat yourself up about it, and you should not let that cause you to stop doing what you're doing, basically, because I've seen artists that have just been so disheartened by numbers and things like that. And I go, look, these numbers aren't everything. You could have 100 true fans out there that aren't represented in data in any platform right now, but they're out there. And you may have reached some of them, and some of them may be trying to reach you, but you just need to keep going, because this music is eventually going to reach them. And like you said, it may not happen on day one. It may happen after the release has been out, but you'd be glad that you kept going and kept putting those tracks out, because I'm a listener, you're a listener, the same way we're artists, the same way a lot of people in this conversation in the chat are artists as well. When you're a listener, music is new to you the first time you hear it. It doesn't matter if it came out 2 years ago or 10 years ago. It's new to you at that moment. So, okay, it may miss some of these new music playlists, but there's a number of other opportunities there. And that's why these songs traveling with all this information within these platforms is so important, because I can tell you from experience as a listener, I'm getting served music that I've never heard in my life that is not new, and I'm loving it. And I'm saving it to my library, and I'm asking the voice assistant in my smart speaker, what song is this? And they're telling me, and I'm following that artist. And I'm so glad that they're still making music, because it would be so sad to hear that they gave up or they pursued something else.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that point in particular, because it's maybe the flip side, and maybe it helps in the dialogue about like not putting too much pressure on the playlist thing, because that's not the be all end all. And also, before I forget, I wanted to ask you about your thoughts on Submit Hub and similar kinds of things. But going back to this, playlisting is not the be all end all thing. I've had some success with playlists where it boosts the numbers, right? So you also mentioned the metrics of it all, where in fact, my number one streamed song is, I think it's at 2.5 million. It got on this humongous, I want to say Argentinian playlist. And it was like the sleeper track. It was like the last track in an EP. It was almost an afterthought. Like it was me re-releasing the singles with the waterfall. Like, okay, I put this one out in September. I put this one out in December. Let's package them with a third song and put that out in April to give everything another shot. It somehow popped on this playlist. It popped in terms of streams, but I maybe got like a few dozen new followers from it. Like it's one of the situations where the playlist is such a background thing in this particular case, that people were enjoying my song and never necessarily bothering to find out who it was by, and it's possible that years may go by and someday they'll hear it. They'll be like, oh yeah, I've loved that song I've always wanted to know who that song is by. It's been on my playlist forever.
Yeah. This is really common. And with genres like lo-fi, and I personally, I love listening to lo-fi music, but I couldn't tell you 90% of the artists that I've heard, which is hard for me. But it's one of those things where I'm like, okay, instead of following an artist with genres like lo-fi, I will follow a brand. So I will follow Chill Hop, who I should say is a YouTube channel and a record label and everything else. And what I'm finding is that exactly what you said, it is passive listening. It's almost the same as when you're listening to music in store somewhere or in a restaurant. You're like, I'm digging this tune. Unless you whip your phone out and you Shazam it, you won't know what that was, and you probably won't be able to find out. And with lo-fi, a lot of people have it on while they're doing something else. They're reading,
Right.
they're studying, they're doing other things so that they don't get distracted and run to see who that song was by.
Totally.
Um, it is tough, but at the same time, it's interesting because to just speak on lo-fi for a minute, a lot of people that I've spoken with, they kind of like the fact that there's no expectations of them to constantly be showing up on social media. They don't have to go
Right.
and get all these press shots taken. They just put out their music
That's really
and
interesting. I hadn't thought about
yeah.
that. Right. That's interesting. Yeah.
Whereas for someone like yourself, who, obviously pre-pandemic was touring and performing and playing gigs, you're like, I want people to know who I am so that they'll come to my shows and I want
I
to be
mean, it's
recognized.
yes and no. I mean, it's interesting to think about it as a genre specific thing. Absolutely nailed it on the head. In fact, the profile of somebody who makes lo-fi music tends to be an individual musician because it's relatively simple to do. It's instrumental, so you don't need vocals. When you get vocals, that's when you start to kind of usually have collaboration coming in. It's so easy, the songs are relatively loop based and they're relatively short. So much of it lends itself to the type of musician who may not be the type of musician who ever wants to leave the studio. There's a real kind of profile match between the kind of lean back musical experience it is and the kind of music. So there may be actually a good fit there. And to your point, there's also low stress in the creative process because not every track needs to be a banger. Now, when you're making a song with vocals, it's it it's 5x to 20x the effort involved. It just is. I've done both. I've done instrumentals and vocals. The second there's a story that's being told and a singer telling the story, it just really ramps up how much sort of your effort, of your time goes into it. And as a result, probably your expectations also rise. I'll make the analogy to TikTok, where I'm in the position, and I talk about this with other creators all the time, like my TikToks take way too darn long. My TikToks never take less than 5 hours. And that doesn't correlate to success at all. Like the TikTok algorithm doesn't go, oh, you put a lot of time into this, I'm gonna make it go. TikTok algorithm looks at a 7-second meme video and gives it 20 million views just as easily as it would give something that has clear effort put into it. So anyway, I'm kind of jumping around to different topics here, but back to your point about genre and the correlation between genre and playlist success and maybe an artist's happiness and being content with the result, that artist in lo-fi may be totally fine with just being one of literally 100 generic kind of interchangeable title of song, artist name, artwork. I mean, you could really mix and match on those playlists, and I don't know that you'd really get it wrong that much. Which is no shade on the genre. I love it. I listen to it myself, but it's intended to be a vibe more than it is intended to kind of break out personality wise and sound wise.
Yeah. And it's such an interesting one as well because, I mean, there's artists that I've seen that will release lo-fi, but they'll also release other types of music as well. So they can still get out and perform to a crowd. I mean, I'll be honest, I feel like if there was a lo-fi event that I would go because I would want to hear it live and I would like to see somebody out there, performing lo-fi music live. And I just think
Right.
that would be a really cool experience. It's something that's not happening at the moment, but it would be really interesting to see. So, yeah, let's watch this space and see what happens. Maybe we can bring someone on in the next live stream and go from there.
A lo-fi
Yeah,
producer.
a
Yeah.
lo-fi.
No, it's funny. Just recently, lo-fi was like I haven't slept since March 2020 because like I don't, just the general agita of the planet. But I figured out how to put myself to sleep. I would like listen to a lo-fi playlist. I'm not the only one to solve the problem this way, right? It would sort of calm me down because the tempo is kind of like 70 to 80 BPM. So it's slow. And the sounds are very dusty and very evocative of like nostalgic, and it's simple and it loops and like it's a lot of Rhodes keyboard. So it's all about creating a vibe, which happens to be very soporific. But recently, I swapped my 4 a.m. waking up. I need to go back to sleep music for Jamaican for dub, basically, which is
Right.
Jamaican dub reggae, which is reggae without the vocals and like usually just drum and bass and little snippets of sound that come and go. But the same tempo as lo-fi. So it's interesting to think of the parallels between the two and how functional it is. I've been really interested right recently in the idea of music as being functional. And Spotify obviously is way ahead of the curve with their playlists that are based on what you're doing. There's the dinner making playlist, dinner for friends, and then there's the working out playlist, and then there's the lo-fi playlist for homework. So yeah, it's interesting to think about what makes something genre, and I wonder about artists kind of retooling what they do based on what the algorithms and what the playlists in the world are favoring.
Yeah, and I'm okay with artists doing that as long as they're doing what they love still and they're not changing to a different genre just to get their streams up or anything like that. You have to love what you do first and foremost. Otherwise, this probably is not the right industry. um,
Yeah.
I do see we got a question here from Makar. Please let me know if I've pronounced your name incorrectly. Hi, will metadata on released tracks be picked up by Spotify playlists without entering an editorial form? The safe answer would be no, but the reality is if you still submitted that form at some point, that information should be attached. In this case, let's say that you didn't, and we're talking a song that came out a few years ago. There will still be information that will populate around that track based on who listens to that and what they listen to before and after. One service that I'm a big fan of is last.fm. And how that works is their wording is they scrobble your listening history, which basically means that whatever streaming platform you're listening to, if you had it hooked into iTunes back in the day or other platforms, it's got this continuous list of everything that you've listened to and the order that you listen to it in, how many tracks you've gone back to and listened to multiple times. And there was a point where I was almost convinced that that was actually causing the related artists, now known as fans also like, section on Spotify to update based on that data, because they're taking into consideration listeners on multiple platforms, not just Spotify. So I would say that the more people that listen to your music, as long as you've got people, you're not just telling someone who normally listens to rock and you make a completely different genre. As long as these people are listening to your music and similar music over time, it is likely that it could actually happen. What I've seen for artists where this has been successful is they've ended up on Discover Weekly, they've gone well on that, and eventually they've gone on an editorial playlist that programs catalog music, which is obviously not new music, but still great music that would be a perfect fit. And those playlists that you mentioned, Blake, the ones that will have music from 20 years ago alongside a brand new song, one's for running or one's for studying or things like that. There is the potential that that could happen. There's no guarantees, but it could happen over time. And I have seen it happen as well.
But I do know if you neglect to populate the Spotify for Artists questionnaire before you release it, it won't go out. It won't go on release radar. So your followers won't get that kind of nice, easy win of like, X number of plays being, pretty close to the number of followers you have. So that is one thing I know they require you to be at least a week ahead of time in order to get on release radar, which is a pretty valuable, again, layup of a playlist to be on, because people that have already decided they like you will be aware that you have a new tune.
Yeah, definitely. We just got a thank you, Thomas. Appreciate that. Blake,
we like questions and we like praise.
Oh, yes, we sure do. So keep it coming. We appreciate it. I wanted to put you on the spot a little bit. I know that in our previous conversation, which was not live, you mentioned that the first time you ever had a family member really understand what you do was when you were mentioned in the Wall Street Journal, and it was
right.
somewhat controversial because of a certain someone by the name of Don Henley. Is there anything that you could share with us that you feel comfortable sharing?
Well, first of all, for legal reasons, you said his name. I didn't. His name doesn't pass through my lips for legal reasons. I actually just posted about this story today on LinkedIn. So it's on my LinkedIn profile under posts, which by the way, is a little bit hard to get to. Yeah. But somewhere, if you find my name, you'll find my post. Anyway, once upon a time, I started making bootleg edits, which is extremely the nature of not just dance music, but I'll just keep it there. Dance music has thrived for DJs having their own personal kind of killer tool that only they have, their version of a hit song. It's special because they've either or gotten someone to do it or they've done it themselves, made a version of it that nobody else has, that either elongates the like rhythmic and the funkiest and the best parts of it, and or it has the mixing at the beginning, mix in and out parts. So it's unofficial remixes, not sanctioned by the artist or the label, but it's just known to be part of dance music for like 50 years now. This is not a new phenomenon. So I went ahead and did one of those for a song by a certain 70s commercial rock radio band who I will not name, but it rhymes with the Beagles. And it kind of went crazy. Like it found its way through the community. I later found out that there was this one DJ who was a big Burning Man DJ, and he played it for all his friends and they played it for their friends. And one of those people turned out to be a writer for the Wall Street Journal. So she came to my house and wrote this article about me, got in the Wall Street Journal. There's my picture in this studio. And I don't know if you can see right there, but there is, it's kind of shiny. But if you can see, there's some cover art there with some cat claw scratches through it, like the album has been shredded. And I think a member of this band may have seen this article and decided that this was not okay. Because I very soon after this got I had some conversations. I can't get into the mucky muck about it, but everything's chill now. But for a minute, it was a little bit touch and go, because the technical fact of the legal matter is that every instance of a bootleg that gets downloaded, if somebody wanted to, they could sue you for, I think it's $150,000 per download, not per song that you did it to, but every instance of a download. So this might have been a multi-million-dollar problem had I not had some excellent legal counsel, courtesy of my father. And to be fair, the label was pretty cool about it too. It all ended up being very nice and everyone's fine. And now I have, to your point, I have something that made my mother understand what I do for a living. Not until this moment, though. It's not until your boy's in the journal that you understand his life. So yeah, that's my story. And I go into a little more detail about that in the post I put on LinkedIn today. I think it's called How to Steal Music, Part 15. Yeah. White labels and dinosaur rock.
I feel like you are just I don't know if it's intentional or not, but I feel like you're an SEO master. I mean, not only that, but
not
just
intentional.
When I heard How to Steal Music, I was like, am I about to get mad? And then I saw it and I was like, that's freaking genius. You got my attention. And then I was like, no, this is actually just really, really entertaining and informative.
Oh,
so you managed to hook me, and I'm sure that's been the same for a lot of people. So yeah, and your posts, I mean, what are you up to now? Is it 15 in the series?
15. I'm going to do 40 in a row by the time we're done with our LinkedIn creator accelerator program. I'm going to just that's going to be what I'm doing officially. Of course, there'll be other things here and there, but yeah, I'm going to try to get to 40. And it's been fun because, some of them I'm able to refer to existing TikTok videos. So like what I'm writing is new because all I've had to go on before was maybe a video, but the video kind of helps, drive the story home. Other ones are completely new ideas that I've been meaning to explore, but like LinkedIn kind of makes sense as a platform more than TikTok for various reasons. You can kind of get into a little more into the depth and the detail a little more. You can trust that your audience is perhaps a little bit more serious-minded, if you will. But yeah, it's been fun making these posts and becoming known as the interpolation guy, as well as the How to Steal Music guy.
It's a good thing to be known for as well. And yeah, it's just, for me, it just felt really unique. Everyone has their own way of teaching, of sharing, and I just found it super unique. And that's definitely how you got my attention to begin with. So,
Well,
definitely you're
moving
onto
the
a good
attention
thing
to
there.
you, like you're obviously killing it on LinkedIn. I'm learning a lot from you because I'm pretty new to using the platform this way. I think like a lot of people up until very recently, you just kind of think of it as a place that it's about making networking for jobs and for putting your resume up there. But they're really obviously making an effort, and you're one of the foremost people I've seen do this to turn it into. I'm not sure. I'd actually like to hear your description of what it is, because in a way, it's like there's some Facebooky, Twitter attributes to there being news items and to being opinion. However, it's a closed environment, and it's, I think, far obviously the algorithm is less insane than those other platforms. It's not trying to drive, um, you know, controversy and cook up political firestorms. So there's something interesting about LinkedIn dipping their toe into this, and you've been doing a great job at like using it for that. So maybe you can talk to us a little more about what you do on LinkedIn.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for me personally, before this whole Creator Accelerator program, which, as you mentioned, the support's been fantastic, and the amount of tools that the LinkedIn team give us, including what we're using today with StreamYard. Prior to all of that, I'd already been paying attention to LinkedIn and telling artists to get on there, and really just saying, you're going to find the engagement is way higher. You're going to find people are more open to connecting with you and receiving a direct message from you. One reason for that is, on other platforms, you're usually finding their personal profile where they have photos of their personal life, their family, their friends, what they do on the weekend. They're not necessarily trying to connect with people they don't know. LinkedIn is all about connection. And a lot of people still have it in their head that LinkedIn is for people in suits in corporate jobs and all of this. And I mean, yes, of course, there's still people that do that. But what everyone is starting to realize is that if you are a creator, in this case, music, you are a professional. You're a professional musician. You're a professional music manager, whatever it is, you are professional. And what I love about it is professional no longer means that you wear a suit. Professional means you dress your own way, you have your own style, you even have your own way of speaking and communicating. And so because of that, I've really found it as a place where, for artists, I've said, you can come on here as yourself, talk about what you do, ask questions. People will gladly answer them, and you'll be surprised at who will answer them. It's not just username 2469 or whatever. It's this person who does this and has done all these things is answering my question right now. And the amount of support that I've seen on LinkedIn, I just wanted to really extend that further to the greater music industry. So not just A&R's networking with people or music supervisors or things like that, but adding artists in there as well as true professionals. And I mean, because a lot of us that are doing music, this is what we want to do for the rest of our lives. This is our career. This is our life. So why not bring that onto LinkedIn as well?
That's so cool. And it's funny that it's only because of this program that I'm seeing it firsthand, what in retrospect is so obvious. And really part of it is that once you associate an actual name, like not an anonymous profile with like a random PFP, but like, this is me, this is my real name, my identity, my connections, my network. The platform benefits greatly from it being less about trolling and less about bullying and less about the garbage that we see on the other platforms. What a great opportunity that LinkedIn. I'm now feeling like we are not shilling for LinkedIn. They have not paid us to do this particular live stream. This is just us naturally gushing with, realizing that there's a lot to be said for having conversations in this environment. It's a world of difference versus any Yahoo coming aboard and just trying to like boost their, just trying to piss people off, which is what happens so often in these other platforms.
Yeah. No, I'm
Outrage
really glad you
breeds
said that.
clicks. Yeah.
Exactly. And I mean, I don't know if our creator managers at LinkedIn are watching or not, and I would have said that regardless. I mean, we had the exact same conversation privately the other day, and I share that same feedback with them directly also. And what I love is you really hit it on the head in our conversation the other day, which I need to stop referring back to because we're here right now. But you said that the best way to get creators to actually do more on your platform is to support them, but also to pay them, not to just say,
Yeah,
hey, come on our platform and, we'll give you a thumbs up and tell people that you're cool, but we'll actually give you an incentive to do this, and we'll give you the tools and the support, and we want to help you grow
it's
on
so
here, you know?
yes, I know. It's such a like I think we're living in a moment now. It's only 2022. The idea of the creator economy is still relatively new. It's the kind of thing like in fact I'm speaking at something and they ask me what my what to put under my name. It's like, okay, Blake Robin, music producer slash what. And for the first time I was like, I would normally put music producer, DJ, artist, whatever, like just kind of everything in the music bucket. But that day I was like, wait a second, I'm spending half my time and making half my money now. What used to be DJ income has switched over to creator economy income. So I said, and here's where it kind of got funny because I was like, well, what do you put for that? What is the title? So I was like, creator. No, that sounds really vague. Creator. That's not enough. Like internet creator sounds like I invented the internet. So we don't have quite the language yet for what it means to be on these platforms making content and being compensated for it. But we will. I think we're in the middle of this being like figured out. LinkedIn is figuring it out. We're the first 100. We're not the last 100. In theory, unless we screw this up, Mike, you and I and our 98 friends, they'll be doing this again. And I love the idea of, I hope it goes away that it's like a big deal that they're paying us. I had a conversation earlier this week with another platform I'm on, I won't name, but my manager there, who's wonderful, but they don't pay me
Yeah.
and at all. And LinkedIn is paying me. And it's starting to be like, the whole thing is I'm only doing it because I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't be making these videos if I didn't just love making the videos. So that's point one I want to make. Like, I just enjoy it. It's fun for me. But it's also a lot of work. And at the end of the day, the platform I'm posting it to is making money from it. And it's nice in LinkedIn's case that they're sharing the proceeds. YouTube, I don't know if you know the creator Hank Green. Do you know him? Last
Yeah.
week he had a pretty big viral YouTube video where he talks about how YouTube wonderfully and very openly pays very generously. I think 55% of YouTube revenue is shared with creators. But if you go through all the platforms, it goes from YouTube at the top, and I won't name all of them, but at the bottom, there's 0%. Like it's possible, and it's the same effort, it's the same people. So I like the idea that in 2022, LinkedIn maybe shakes all the other platforms, and Reels just started offering me money to post on Instagram. I never had that until recently. They're like, would you like some money this month? I'm like, yep, I'll take some money this month. So hopefully this is a sea change and we're seeing the beginning of this creator economy where it's not a novelty anymore to be paid for, to be compensated. I mean, it's kind of been my job for the past, both of our jobs for the past month has been creating content for LinkedIn.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where, we were doing this before, and, obviously it's a really nice incentive to keep doing it. But I just love the fact that I'm not behind a paywall. I'm not behind any sign up forms, or it's not an exclusive club. I can just go on LinkedIn, post this, and help as many people as possible, and have the support from LinkedIn. It's and not only that, but for me, I look at this and it's got me thinking in a whole different way about what does this look like for musicians moving forward? Yes, gigs pay, of course, as they should. Why do these platforms not just go, hey, Blake, you make incredible music. We would love to pay you to go live on our platform while you're creating music, or just
I
perform.
think they will. I
Let-
think it's just a
gotta
leverage
happen.
thing, and it's starting. The leverage is starting to shift, so that's going to start happening. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I think that is, and I hope that is going to be the new way.
Shout out Twitch. If anyone from Twitch is watching. But in all seriousness, I mean, I've seen it on a number of platforms, and I mean, it is great that people can monetize their live streams, but if you really, really want to get someone on your platform and get them to invest their time, they're going to, at least in the slightest, they're going to look at it as work. They'll still have a great time doing it, but
Yeah.
give them that incentive, pay them, and treat them like an employee in a way. I hope that doesn't come across wrong, but they're working for you, they're creating for you, they're driving people to your platform, they're keeping people on the platform. So yeah, I hope we see more of this moving forward this year,
Well,
especially with
I
so
yeah.
much uncertainty around things like touring.
I semi-promised before when we had our pre-conversation that I wouldn't push us too deep into Web3 and everything, but there is something about the promise of Web3, and maybe I've listened to too many Chris Dixon podcasts or whatever, but one of the primary things that is being sold as part of the Web3 package, and again, I'm not ready to decide that the crypto DAO NFT Web3 package isn't being sold to us and it isn't a giant Ponzi scheme. I'm not ready to decide that it is or isn't yet. But if I'm going to just sort of suspend my disbelief and Web3 is in fact going to make things better, the decentralized web, the Web 3.0, the next version is not going to have a situation where, as we currently do, we're talking about like, can we have a few shekels? We're not talking about what's up with the algorithm. We're not, there's so, that's its own kind of side conversation maybe, is like algorithms on platforms. Spotify has one, TikTok has one, LinkedIn has one. The mystery of the algorithm is not wasting a lot of time, and it is necessary to have a competitive advantage for your business. I understand this, but a lot of times it does a couple of things. One, the mystery of it means a lot of people are wasting their time doing things that they think will work, hope will work, but it doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? Can you just have some transparency with what you're looking for? The flip side of that, and the answer which any platform may give you why they don't, is we already see it on Spotify where there's a sameness to a lot of the music that's coming out. A lot of people are picking up on, you might call them hacks or something, but like in the first, whatever, 10 or 15 seconds, we know that Spotify, if you're not going to like get past those first 15 seconds, so there's an effort that's been made to beef them up to make them more exciting. And that's affecting creative people's choices about their art based on the platform's algorithm. So I'm already kind of going into like 50 directions at once. So I will pause there to get your thoughts. But there's a lot to be said for having less mystery on the algorithm side would be kind of where I would land there.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I have not written it off by any means, but I've just kind of been happy to sit back and watch and just see how it goes. And I go, okay, there's only so many things that I can cram in here right now, and there's so many people out
Right.
there that have actually released, done an NFT drop. They've done all of these incredible things that I look at it and I go, okay, I'm just going to sit back and watch. And there's people that I know that are definitely, I know we don't like to always use the word expert, but they're right up there in this space, and I will gladly direct people to them. And I think in a year from now, I could definitely see it being the norm, and maybe we won't even be talking about things like playlists anymore. Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe everyone will be having experiences in the metaverse. Who knows?
Christina has a question here, or maybe it's a comment. You had it on the screen. To me, NFT equals selling your art installations. Haha, I studied art history and art technology, like heading to a digital art museum in a way. I totally get NFTs in theory. And I've been pretty engaged in like lurking in the space, meaning I'm a member of a couple DAOs. I'll give them a shout out, by the way. If anyone is interested in this NFT Web3 stuff we've been alluding to, and you're in the music and or technology space, I would hugely highly recommend one that both Mike and I are part of called Water and Music. Super thanks for highlighting that particular comment. Water and Music is run by Cherry who's a writer, and she started as a newsletter writer, and she's turned it into this incredible Discord with like it's becoming increasingly a who's who of both music and tech, discussing Web3 and discussing NFTs with a healthy dose of both skepticism and engagement, and an attitude of let's try this, let's write about it, let's research it, let's figure it out. So I'm pretty like, I am watching this. I am reading the Discord daily, and I'm still at the point where I'm not ready to do it myself. I think I've seen a couple of things. One, there's a lot of work, surprisingly, involved in setting up a successful NFT. Not dissimilar, Mike, to what you were saying about setting up a successful, just real song launch in the real world on existing Web2 platforms. So there's that. And then there's also just frankly the public perception, which doesn't seem to be getting better every day. I think this last week we had, what was it called, Hit Piece? Did you see that particular
Yeah.
kerfluffle about hit? Yeah, this MC Search from Third Base, this 90s hip hop act, was part of this like scam. I'm going to call it a scam, where they basically scraped Spotify and they put everything in the world up as an NFT, which does not help. Which does not help the technology move. Like, it does not help the public perception. It was already
Yeah.
bad enough with right-clicking your apes and having cringy moments with Jimmy Fallon and Paris Hilton on, discussing their apes,
Yeah.
which was another horrible thing that happened in the world last week. So
Yeah.
anyway, all this to say that like I'm open-minded, but I haven't seen anything yet that leads me to go, okay, yeah, this is the thing. I'm ready for this thing.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of those things. I remember people talking to me about crypto 5 years ago, and I just went, look, I've got to be honest, I don't get it, but I really hope it works out for you. And I, a few years from now,
Right.
maybe it'll be a different story. And surely enough, I have some crypto now, and they've done very well from it, and I'm extremely happy for them, and I'm happy that I listened to them and I didn't write it off at the time. Um, but it's one of those things. It's never too late to get on board with something. So if you're hesitant, sit back and watch and just see what happens.
Yeah.
Let other
There's
people
no hurry
explore.
for this stuff.
Yeah, and just wish them well and celebrate for them when they have a win. And they'll most people that do that will happily tell you how they did it as well, and they'll help to bring you up when you're ready.
That's a great point. Yep, you're
Yeah.
right.
So Blake, we're about right on time. I actually have a few things I need to take care of myself before I can get into the weekend. Um,
Okay.
what I wanted to do was we're going to see if we may get kicked off here by doing this, but let's see if I can share this particular window, and let me just put this up on the screen. Oh, if I click add to stream, here we go. So I won't press play yet. I figured we'll sign off first, and then we'll just leave this up for everyone that's kicking around. But
Okay,
I
I'm
just want
just
to make
putting a
sure I've
link.
got the correct. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. I'm just saying I'm putting a link in the chat to Water and Music. I really think that this is a great group of people.
Yeah.
Again, no financial investment. In fact, I pay, I pay $20 a month to be part of this community, and really, really smart discussions happening in music and tech. So anyone who's in either of those fields, I'd highly recommend it. I just put it in the chat there. But oh, look, it's my new single. Hey, that is my new remix. Look at that.
Awesome. So yeah, what I'll do, let's just jump back to just us for a second. So yeah, first and foremost, I just wanted to say, Blake, thank you so much for agreeing to do this with me. It's one of those things where it just happened so quickly. It was only earlier this week we first spoke, and then we locked this in. And thank you for creating the artwork as well for the event. And here we are. And this could be the first of many. And I wanted to thank you first and foremost, and also everyone that's joined us today. I mean, I've been trying to keep up with the comments. There's been some really good engagement, and I hope that you all connect with each other, get to know each other, support each other, because we're all here for the same reason. So we can all grow together and we can all support each other. We're not competing with anyone else but ourselves. So let's keep sharing what we learn.
I like ending on that note, and thank you for inviting me. And it was great meeting you in this cohort and in this chat. And thank you all for asking your questions and hanging out with us. And this was fun. Maybe we'll do it again.